thanks for everybody for signing up and attending. We sent this out last Thursday, and the attendance has been great. We have a lot of different companies with different backgrounds in different fields, all of which touch the Department of Defense in some way, shape, or form. So it's nice to have a wide variety. It shows that there's an interest across the industry, not just in our space, which is technology primarily, but there's architectural companies, services, construction, you name it. So happy to see that. It definitely shows an interest. We have some different people presenting. Nick is our senior engineer, and he'll be leading a lot of the technical stuff. We have Kevin Cronin. He is the president, founder of the company. And then myself, David McLaughlin. I am the account manager for specifically the CMMC side of things. So with that, I'd like to give it to Kevin, and we can start with that. If that works.
Awesome. Thank you all for joining us. Again, my name is Kevin Cronin. I'm the president and CEO of KELYN Technologies, and KELYN Technologies was started really with one thing in mind, and that is to deliver outcomes for our customers. And no matter what genre of work we're doing, rather than selling products, we deliver outcomes. And so that what we're going to talk about here today is a lot about CUI and a little bit about how we might be able to help those in the CMMC requirement need space. So I appreciate y'all joining, and we'll head on over to the agenda.
So, what's the CMMC 2.0 program? We'll get into that a little bit. The program basically surrounds everything that has to do with CUI. CUI is controlled unclassified information. It is a large part of what the government contractors are dealing with on a daily basis. And it is something that the Department of Defense very much wants to protect based on some past issues that we've had, which we can discuss. Why do they care? There's been a lot of issues with this sensitive but unclassified data reaching hands and having some issues with maybe to some companies not important, but to foreign entities that are looking to capture a lot of our intellectual property. Here's an example here. A Chinese hacker got into Department of Defense contractor and was able to pull out plans for our supersonic anti-ship missile. They captured about 614 gigabytes of sensitive data, and it caused a major issue. It was basically taking a lot of the details of how we're doing things and what we're doing. And in essence, a lot of the data, although unclassified, if you were to combine it, would create classified information. So the data is very, very sensitive, and we're doing everything we can to protect it. And that's part of what the CMMC 2.0 program was put in place for, is to try and create some guidelines and a certification program for companies so that we have a standard level of compliance across the defense industrial base.
Yeah, you brought up a good point, David, where things get kind of gray is a piece of information. I'll just use one of my examples is red, white, and blue. Today, red is not classified, white is not classified, and blue is not classified, but you put them together and they in totality become classified, which is what happened in this example that you're talking about. So it's really important to understand what data you have, and it's really a gray area. As we get through this, you'll see that there's some gray areas. Would you hit the next slide, Nick? So a couple of things that we'll be talking about today. First of all, the NIST is really important in this because NIST is the one who is defining all of the controls for protecting information, and it's across the government space. It's not just for DoD. The NIST management framework is something that DoD uses a lot, and we'll speak specifically today about the identify and the protect pieces. But the 5 main components of the risk management framework are to identify the data, identify assets, not just data, but people, systems, locations, all that. Protect, so obviously that's self-explanatory. Detect, and that could be detecting intrusions. It could be detecting the data that you have. There's a lot of things there. Obviously, respond to anything that's happening in terms of a cybersecurity issue, and then recover afterwards. And so again, we're gonna focus on the identify and protect. And where did this all get started? Next slide, please. Really is if you have a contract from DoD, it's going to most likely it'll have the DFARS 252.204.702, and I won't repeat too many numbers like that because it makes your head spin if we did. But really, that's the genesis of it. And if you go back, NIST has a list of controls that from NIST 853. That's basically the birthplace of all of this. This is where they start to define what cybersecurity looks like and what it means to protect the information for the defense industrial base. CMMC extends both of those to 800, 171, 800, 172, and 53 extends it to the government as a whole. And so, we have CMMC 1.0 has been around for, and it was, there was an attempt or beginnings of, hey, this is where we're going, this is what we're doing. And there was a lot of pushback from industry as to how these things needed to be handled. And really, what if you go back to the requirements here, NIST 853 and 171, those have been around for a while, and that checkbox that we showed is actually something that we all sign up as a contractor. Oftentimes you get a contract from the DoD and you've done a self-assessment to understand that, hey, I check these boxes. NIST 853 has been around for a really long time. And so what's been happening is DoD has relied on everybody's self-assessment. And the self-assessment basically says, yes, I'm following these as an organization, I'm following these things. And where we've really, things have gotten out of hand is maybe not everybody has done all of the things to secure all the data properly, as we've seen in this example. And SolarWinds is another perfect example where, there's been a lot of, there was a lot of damage done, both in terms of actual hacking, but in terms of trust, and there are people being prosecuted for that, and there's a real risk of folks from SolarWinds actually going to jail. So it's a real important thing to address, and that's obviously why we're here. So the CMMC Model 2 is basically, there's going to be a lot less self-assessment and a lot more actual going through audits, right? And you're going to have to go through an audit to get CMMC certified, but there's also a chance you could go through ad hoc audits, and those will be probably more prescriptive, right? That there's something wrong or something was found, and now they're going to audit you. That's a real possibility. So like I said, CMMC 2.0 is really driving the need for both the policy and the actions to follow that allow your organization to become CMMC certified.
Yeah, and to your point, in working with the a C3PAO, which is one of those companies that will come in and do final audit, there were a lot of companies with self-assessments that had a passing score based on their own assessment. When it was applied to an actual audit, a mock audit, we had found that they were actually failing a lot. They were way off the number. So, the DoD saw that and said, well, we need to get this to a level where there is a better standard, and we know these companies are actually following the controls set forth by the NIST standard. So in comes the third-party organization that will come out and do the assessment and say, yes, no, you passed. It is a pass-fail. If you take the assessment, if you go through the assessment and you fail, that will be recorded to the Department of Defense. So I would stress the utmost importance that you want to pass the first time. So do the time and the due diligence now. You don't want that recorded. If you do fail, then that does cause some issues with existing contracts and possibly being in the contention for new contracts coming down the road.
Yeah, so we've got a couple of questions. So one of the questions is, would you please ensure that you address the government's responsibility at the onset of a contract to identify what is CUI in that contract? And there are requirements to do that, right? The government does have a requirement to actually mark there, and we've got some examples that we'll show a little bit later on in terms of some of the markings. It could be as simple as the CUI in a header, a header of an email, or it could be something at the footer of an email or a file, and it also could be an actual cover sheet. And so we'll show you some of those examples. But the key thing to remember though is there is information that you might already have or become aware of or have or receive that isn't necessarily marked, and we'll address that as well. And then the other question is, does the government have an obligation to identify what they send as CUI? And this way we'll know to safeguard it. Yes, there is a requirement, but again, you will find out that that's only as good as the person sending the CUI. And it brings up an additional point. And one of the things that we do, if you know you're going to be receiving CUI, it is a really good idea to have. You can either have your entire environment CMMC certified, or you can set a boundary around a certain subset of applications, email, file sharing, those types of things, and have a separate set of email addresses and all of that are designed to receive the CUI. That's what we're doing. I know there's a lot of organizations that are already doing that. And so that's something to keep in mind too. And again, we can further discuss that as we get into this if there's still questions there.
All right. Thanks, Kevin. I know everyone in the room is waiting for the bald guy that the engineers waiting to speak. So let's get on to the fun stuff, guys. So defining CUI, a lot of people don't really understand what CUI is, or some people might understand. So you have two types of CUI. So you have CUI basic. So that's basically a category of government-wide policy, and we're going to have examples on the next slide. But then you have GUI specified. So this one actually has different markings and handlings to accommodate specific requirements. So I'm big on pictures. I love pictures. So this is specified examples. So these are markings on actually CUI documents. So in the top left, you have an email, a header and footer CUI, and then basically you have a designation indicator. It's controlled by CUI categories. And then if there's like a point of contact, anything like that, all that data goes down there. So if there's an email that gets sent out, that specified CUI, it has those type of markings. Same thing as a document. So if there's a document in your environment, you have a header, footer, and then you have the designation indicated, what it's controlled by, all that information. Or you can actually have, if the data actually doesn't have CUI in there, or a cover sheet. A lot of times people just walk in, in the office, they'll actually have the CUI cover sheet on top of that. So you guys might have seen that as well. So that's specified examples of actually CUI.
And one of the reasons we put this one first is because, as the questions indicate, this is the easy stuff, right? This is where, they tell you it's CUI. It's really easy. The next slide is where it gets a little more murky, right? It's maybe they haven't told you. These are all types of information that could be considered CUI. Obviously, some of that is considered PII as well. But that information, if you receive that type of information from the government, that is actually CUI. CUI is essentially the replacement for official use only. Any of these data types are official use only. And you'll see contracts is one of them. You could get a DoD contract that is just the nature of the contract itself is CUI. And there is a possibility that it's not labeled that way.
So yeah, so as Kevin was saying, so the data that's marked CUI, that's the easy stuff. But the data that's not marked CUI, everyone has data. A lot of data is everywhere. This is an example of driver's license, just imaging, photocopy of a driver's license, social security numbers, date of birth, taxpayer ID, banking information is one of them. So that's all the stuff that, if you do have that part of that contract that, defines under that CUI, and maybe some people haven't even seen, the actual CUI cover sheet or whatnot like this, but this is actually kind of, opened up my eyes to say, hey, this is actually the example of CUI. Doesn't have to be marked. This is just unmarked data. So, but like Kevin said, this is the harder stuff to find.
Yeah, we have a question here, Nick. It's we're finding that the government reps are unwilling to spend the effort to determine what really is CUI and what isn't, and that's a legitimate concern and problem for industry.
Valid question.
Yeah, and I can't, we can't tell you what the government should obviously be marking CUI appropriately, right? I can tell you that there's going to be situations where it's not going to get marked correctly, and it's our job. The way I look at it is we're mitigating risk, right? So if we can do a really good job of trying to figure out what that CUI is, and we'll talk a little bit about that here, let's find it on our own. And I know that's not the most fun answer, but that is really, one of the things that we're going to talk about is how do you find that, and how do you address it in your environment, knowing that you may not have all the answers, right at the beginning. The government may not send it as CUI, or another industrial partner doesn't send it appropriately as CUI, because it isn't necessarily just information you're getting from the government. It could be information that you're getting from another, a prime or a sub in your contracts. So it's not, we're not talking about an easy problem to solve here necessarily. So
yeah, and I had actually met with a contracting officer, and I said, how do you determine what to label on the contract? What do you put out on the contract? You say it's CUI. How do you determine that? And she said, we try our best to find out, but if we don't know, we'll just mark it, with those markings, like it's CUI, so you have to protect it that way. Not a great answer, right? It's just kind of like taking a broad stroke at it all and saying, well, it all is, right? And that's a problem. If you do have questions, though, I would recommend if there's an existing contract, reaching out to those contracting specialists and have them look a little bit more deeper into that to help you.
Yeah, there is somebody that actually does have that responsibility within every government agency. The record, it could be a records management person. It could be it could be the contracting officer, the core, the COTAR. There's a number of people that should be able to tell you, whether something is CUI. If you have a question, and I would say if you have a question, treat it as CUI and ask the government if it is CUI, but treat it like it is until you hear otherwise.
But I think that's a good point, Kevin. And so, guys, this is a lot of times when we meet with customers, these are the four kind of top, topics we're sitting in the room with them. First off, trying to be locating CUI in live and backup environments. So, 10, 20 years ago, people had a terabyte of data and they thought that was a lot of data. Now, even you go into environments and a petabyte's not even that, out of the realm for most customers. So, just a way to provide a consolidation view to take a look at all your data, to see what your data is out there. A tool that can live up and pull in all your data and be able to find that critical data or find that data that you didn't even know that's out there. Another thing too is identifying user access privileges. A lot of companies, they go through different admins over the years. Admin might have set a share on this volume for a certain reason and never went back to it. So that's another big challenge is, companies face that they talk to us about. Trying to identify user access and privileges of sensitive data, and to be able to alert if there's actually, some type of breach or anything, around that type of data. And then, the big thing is remediate risk with CUI, just providing a method to mitigate the risks, either by changing the access permissions or moving or deleting the information in bulk, and not having to go out to that share and manually do that, having a tool where you can go in and that easy button. Another thing is just achieving compliance and maintaining a compliant environment. So, it was like Kevin said in the beginning, it was a checkbox. Hey, you took my word for it. I checked this box, and a lot of people didn't get audited. Some people got audited. Now it's a whole level certification. So, you want to do it right the first time. You want to make sure everything's all your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed, because kind of I was talking with Kevin and David and just trying to, I think, what were you saying, David? There seems to be that there's going to be a pretty big line to get the CMMC certification. And, if you fail it first time, then, is it, hey, take number 986 afterwards?
Yeah, I think the thing is now is that the final rulemaking is in process for CMMC 2.0, and that's due to be out in 2024. Currently, there are 40 to 50 companies that are certified to do those third-party audits. An audit might take 2 to 3 weeks. The defense industrial base, the average number that they've come up with is 300,000 companies will need to go through this process. That's a lot of companies. For 40.
And they're not. So David, correct me if I'm wrong. The way that they've talked about rolling this out is like a couple of large contractors for large primes, and they're going to have the CMMC certification as a requirement for those contracts and any sub. So anybody that wants to bid on those contracts, not even get them, but even bid on them, will have to be certified, right? And then all of the subs that want to bid with the prime have to also be certified. So even though they're going to start with like a 5, 6, maybe 7 contractors, the ramifications are huge because of the mandatory flow downs, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of it. So you have the primes that are now pushing it down to the subs. They're saying, in order to work with us, you need to go through this process. You need to prepare for it, or else you're not going to be on the team. The direct contracts that people are bidding on are also going to start to call out more of, you need to be CMMC 2.0. Now, this is coming, right? If you're not, there is a grace period, right? But there is incentive to get ahead of that and be one of the first companies to actually be compliant. A lot of companies are voluntarily being assessed under the Joint Surveillance Program in order to get ahead of it. If you look at what's going to happen, if they roll this out, you have 300,000 companies that are going to be rushing to get in with the C3PAOs to be audited. And there's going to be a backlog. I can't imagine them even be able to service a small portion of that. So there is going to be quite a demand for this, and preparing now is a good step forward.
I feel like it's going to be like that Black Friday shopping. Everyone's lining up for that $100 65-inch TV and fighting each other for that. Is that the picture you're building for me, David? Here,
I guess the risks are a little bit more though, because you don't want to potentially lose a contract, right? So yeah, it's important to address this now. There are a lot of companies that are signing up for that joint surveillance program to be assessed now. The program said 99% sure if you go through and you pass this, you will be grandfathered into the CMMC 2.0 program. So companies are doing that to try and get ahead of the game, and that's something we could discuss after, maybe in a one-on-one conversation, what companies are doing. The other thing too is in point 4, maintaining compliance. So if you go through the program and you achieve compliance, you're still on the hook to keep that compliance level up. And you are subject to spot audits where Department of Defense could come in and say, hey, we want to audit you right now. And if you're not up to the standards, then you have possibility of losing that contract.
That's a great segue to the next slide. So what are the risks, right? Audits can be ad hoc. We mentioned that, and obviously they can withhold payments. They can you can do things to remain in contract. They could you could be kicked out of a contract. They could have the contract terminated, and in the worst case scenario, if you're doing things highly unethical and probably illegal, you could face some jail time there.
all right, guys. I know this is what you guys have been waiting for, so we're going to give you kind of a glimpse, a little bit of glimpse of what we're kind of talking about. So, we've got a nice dashboard, Got CUI dashboard. So kind of goes over, has a lot of, good textiles. So we can go in and help companies go in and take a look at their data. So this is an example of data that reviewed with CUI markings. So simple dashboard, go in, take a look. Hey, there's an email, mark CUI. There's a KELYN letter, mark CUI. And then we also have the infamous CUI, what is it? Lost my train of thought. Cover sheet. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No one really uses cover sheets anymore. I don't know if anyone ever has a fax machine anymore. So, so a little bit of information we can give guys, and just kind of, for those people that are on, David's contact's going to be at the end, so hit him up and we can circle back, and love to give you kind of a demo on this. So, kind of going back to some of those questions we get for a lot of customers, for one, a lot of customers don't even know what type of data you have. So do you got emails, phone numbers, dates, social security numbers, credit cards out there, even IP addresses, international bank numbers? You'd be surprised when we use this tool what customers are going, wow, I didn't know we had all that in that area. So, you know, a lot of it's eye-opening. A lot of them, you know, do you even know where your data is at? So, like a quick overview, you know, if you have a regulation says, hey, I can't have anything in Brazil, and something pops up in Brazil, wouldn't it be nice to have you know, a nice dashboard to say, hey, I actually have data out in Brazil. This is my data. I can go to it. I can remediate things. Um, and not only the fact is we can look at all that stuff, we can also ingest. So a lot of stuff with file systems, Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive, database, object storage. So I know a lot of customers are moving a lot of their file shares up to object storage. We're able to go out and take a look at that, ingest that data, and you know, tell you where your vulnerability is at, show you where that is.
Yeah, and on top of all that, so you have the data types, and there are certain search terms that we're aware of that give us the ability to kind of look for you know, some of that generic CUI that may not be, you know, specific. And then there's also we have the capability of doing some machine learning. We can feed the system different types of things, like use contracts as an example. We can feed the system some contracts and then actually use those as examples of what to look for. So there's a ton of different ways to define the CUI. And then once we have a good solid definition of your type of CUI specifically, then we can do a really good job of helping you find it. And as we mentioned earlier, remediate, move it, and protect it a lot better. So our job is to really help you find the things that you're looking for, find the data, find the CUI. That's what we do, and we do it really well.
All right, guys. So just kind of, you know, wrapping up everything, you know, with all this information that we provided, CUI, all that, you know, like to kind of thank you guys. And again, you know, you guys got your cameras out, take a screenshot.
Nick, we do have a question. So if we retrieve the identified CUI using my email and a browser, is that acceptable, or do I need to be using encrypted or specifically secured lines to even download the data? So this isn't, encryption is obviously something that you want to do all the time anyways. That's just something that is in the browser and in Office 365 by nature. That should help you. But what we're really talking about is you need to go beyond this. So if you're looking for an environment that is going to pass a CMMC audit, you have a lot of work to do in terms of segmenting that data from the rest of your data, or you need to treat your entire organization as a CMMC compliant organization. It's not just email. There's also, and we're taking a data centric approach of this, right? We're looking at protecting the data, which if you think about network security and cybersecurity, what you're really protecting is the data in the first place. Nobody's hacking your environment just to get into your network. They're hacking your environment or trying to get into your system so that they can have access to your data, right? So we have to make sure that we're protecting the right types of data. All of your CUI data must be protected within the CMMC requirements and the risk management framework, right? So that's what we're talking about here. We at KELYN, we've separated our environments. We have our basic environment where we have collaboration. We can get on a Teams call and we can within an organization or external, we can have Teams meetings and Teams calls externally from KELYN. right? If you switch to Microsoft Office, the GCC High version, what they call GCC High, that is a CMMC compliant offering, but you also, it breaks a lot of the collaboration tools that you have that everybody loves and uses on a daily basis. So if you separate those two and say, okay, this is my CUI environment over here, and this is my general information, you can reduce your costs by keeping that environment separate, right? So that's what we've chosen to do. I know there's a number of other groups that have chosen to do that kind of same thing. And once that's in there, then your email, once you're in the CUI environment, any email that you get in there is obviously going to be treated as CUI. It's going to be separated, and you can control it that way. I hope that answered that question. Do you have updated information on current compliance deadlines? There is not yet a specific deadline. We believe that they're going to release the final rulings in early 2024. There is not yet an official deadline.
Yeah, they are in the process. So the expectation is that early 2024, that should roll out. Now, that's not to say that you have to be compliant on that date. There'll be a grace period where companies can work towards that. I'd be happy to look at it a little closer and see if I can find some more specific information.
Yeah, and the last question we have here is how come some of the controls are vague and subject to interpretation? And the goal of CMMC is not to necessarily require you to do things a certain way, right? It's still allowing you the flexibility to be a business. It's still allowing you the flexibility to do things the way that you want them done or to meet your controls. And I agree, a password set to 5 is not necessarily secure, but there's also dual factor authentication requirements and a number of other things that really enhance that security. And the gist is you have to be doing, not the gist, the spirit of what we're trying to do and what the government is trying to do is make sure that everybody is doing everything they can to protect the unclassified information the best that they possibly can, right? And it's called a risk management framework because it's guidance. Everything they're giving us is guidance. It's not telling us exactly how to do everything. It's guidance on what needs to be done.
Yeah, and with that, when you look at the controls and you talk to the customers and what's required, it's good to work with an organization that has an understanding of what you need to supply, where you don't have to overdo things, right? You want to meet the requirements without having to go beyond that. So, that's an important question. And, you really need to take a look at each control. So there are ways and there are applications that we work with that can help with that process by streamlining that, pre-populating things and saying, yeah, you meet the requirement. You can stop at that point.
Yeah. We have another question. It says, so how do you identify CUI that are not all identified? And that is, so that's a great question. And we didn't want to sound too salesy on this call. That is one of the things that we do for a living, right? So we do have a program that does scanning. We call it indexing. And that program actually can go out and look at all those different data types that Nick mentioned, email, SharePoint, S3 buckets, wherever your data might be, wherever your data might be and might be found, we can index that data, and we can do it both on an initial go find it type of a thing. And we have templates. Essentially, we have a list of templates that will go look for specific types of data. And then we can, once we find it, then we actually have the ability to we can move it from where it is to say a different file share or a bucket or a different location that can be treated as specifically secure CUI type of an environment.
I'll say, Kevin, just if you guys, not to interject, but if you guys want some more, want to see the cool stuff, give David a holler and we can set up a demo for you guys, kind of walk you guys through the process and really show, because I'm a big visualized person. I don't need you to tell me in a slide deck what it is. I want to see it for real. I want to see what it looks like, what it can do for me. So definitely, if you guys want more in depth, ping David. We can get a live demo set up.
Yeah.
And we could do this. We could do this type of an environment and an event again, and actually show that too. We could do it in a group setting, or we could do it in a private setting. That's up to you. Just let us know what you guys would like to see.
Yeah.
How do we find a list of approved audit companies? David, do you have that list?
Yeah, there are a bunch that I like. I'd be happy to provide that information. They all meet a certain strict standard to become certified. There are some that are better than others, in my opinion, just like anything, right? But I can supply you with that. I will say this though, that the audit companies now, what they're selling is a mock audit and a final. The mock audit is to come in and see, hey, where do you stand now? The issue with the mock audit and a C3PAO, the certified companies, they can go and they say, oh, you're going to fail here, here, and here, but they can't help you fix it. They cannot tell you how to work on it, what to use. They just can say, nope, you're failing. So, you can pay $35,000, $40,000, $50,000 for one of these mock audits, but if they're not going to tell you how to fix it, it's not really a great way to spend your money. There are a lot of companies that provide a similar audit, but they're able to tell you how to remediate it or what to do. And I'd be happy to provide information on those too. There's some great companies that can get you from start to finish. I don't want to see people waste money on an audit that's not going to get them where they really need to be. So yeah, we can do that for you. This is good. We had a lot of questions. Any other questions?
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you all for attending. We really appreciate your time. We know it's valuable, and we're here to help if you need any. If you'd like we said, we're here for demos or whatever you'd like. Just give us a call, and we'll be happy to help.
Yeah, we'd be happy to talk. And everybody has their own environment. Everybody has their own requirements. Everybody's in a different state. And really, what's good is just to have a conversation and say, where are you in the process? Do you have a POAM? Do you have outstanding things that you need to work on? We can talk about it. Have you defined a boundary? Do you know that all your data is in there? Do you have remote users? These are the things that we can talk about more in a one-on-one situation and kind of point you in the direction. Maybe you do need help. Maybe you're doing fine the way you are. Maybe there is a need to address where the information is. And we'd be happy to do that.